consent. Now, one thing which I would like to mention right at the front is that the trigger for my book, which is titled Privacy, Right and Data Protection, is the fact that I happen to be in a place of a friend, and I had visited him. And at that time, he got a telephone call. And for some reason, he was putting the speakerphone on. Right. So he started talking, and the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, triggered me to write this book. And what did the conversation say? Why is it so? That's what I'm going to show in the first 2, 3, 4 minutes of this. Before that, let me upfront say that from what I see from all of you, ladies and gentlemen, I seem to be the oldest member here. I actually am 87. My birth month is this month. I'm turning 87 next week. So if I give my presentation at this advanced age of mine, please bear with me if I slowly stray into incoherence occasionally, but I hope I will not. Now, the video, ladies and gentlemen, yeah. The chair, he's going to come.
What a tiring day it was today. Let me relax for some time. Hello? Hello? Who's calling?
This is Rohit, sir.
May I know why are you calling me? May I know the purpose?
I'm representative of a pharma company, Medico, a reputed big company with presence all over India.
Why have you called me on my mobile? I'm surprised. You have my mobile number?
Sir, you visited the mobile phone showroom last month to get your instrument serviced and make it function error-free. At that time, you mentioned your mobile number loudly to the counter girl. The shop has CCTV which has recorded the conversation with the girl. The CCTV is interconnected to my head office at Medico, and you know what? They are our agents.
Why have you called me, Rohit?
Sir, I'm very pleased to talk to you. We have a new equipment for diabetes patients. We have insulin inhalers and smart insulin pens. Medico imports the same for the patients and hospitals, sir.
How do you know I am suffering from diabetes?
Sir, you have been a diabetic patient for last 10 years and you underwent treatment in XYZ hospital as recently as 2 months ago. Medico supplies medicines to this hospital also, sir.
It is ridiculous that my private health information is in the hands of outsiders like you.
Sir, you are a reputed executive in an MNC, and if you remember, sir, you have given a presentations to pharma managers at which you advise them to be transparent and ensure that all the health details are made available to the doctors who treat patients suffering from diabetes and germline indispositions. As my medical pharma manager came to know that you had treatment in XYZ hospitals, details of your diabetes conditions were collected and I was instructed to get in touch with you. So, the new equipment for diabetes may have some side effects, and those who have morbidities are prone to side effects. You have morbidities, and we have a drug to address your problem.
Who told you that I have morbidities?
Sir, a month ago, you got in touch with an expert physician who is a close friend of yours and sought his advice on morbidities.
Did you say that the expert is a close friend of mine?
Yes, sir. You and his family went to get together for dinner at Savoy Hotel. At that event, you paid the dinner bill in cash.
You know that too.
You forgot to bring your credit card to the get-together event, so you had to pay the bill in cash. Even, sir, if you have bought the credit card, you could not have used it as the expiry date was already over and it needed to be renewed. May I send the new drug and new diabetic equipment to your residence? New one or the old one?
What do you mean? New flat or old flat?
Sir, your real estate broker informed the purchase details of the new flat to your bank and also the fact that you are planning to shift. I don't know if you have shifted, sir.
Hold on, Rohit. This is the damn limit. I will complain to the police. I either expect a call from them or a notice.
Sir, may I, with respect, inform you that there is no privacy law in force in India yet. A data protection law has been passed by the Parliament recently but has not brought into force. Police, therefore, cannot act for the breach of data. Sir, even if the law has been passed, in your case, you have signed many forms when you are admitted to XYZ hospitals. One of which says that you consent to furnishing health data and other concerned data on your own volition unconditionally for such use as the hospital deems fit. May I organize reaching the new drug and new equipment to your home? I am at your service, sir.
Disgusting.
Dad, do you know what happened in school today?
What happened?
They said that they don't accept a signature because it doesn't match with Aadhaar card.
What do you say? My signature on your progress report does not match with my Aadhaar card.
Yeah.
So that's the conversation which I listened to, and of course there's a little touch-up I've given, some embellishment. Otherwise, substantially, this is what happened at that conversation, and that triggered me to go into this area of privacy right and data protection. You may ask me one question: how am I concerned with this? Are you an expert on this? How do you do it? My answer to you will be very simple. We in the Indian Administrative Service, we actually do something like master of things. We actually play with things, but master of none. Many departments you work in, you get information, but nothing you get an expert on. But then, as the director in Masuri Academy said, yes, IAS officers may not be master of anything, but they get a fine polish. That's what he said. And so, taking advantage of that, I thought I should mention to you that last 15, 20 years, I've been working on Companies Act, Competition Act, and data protection and privacy right. So that is what has egged me on to write this book. Now, I'll make a PPT to you. I won't bother you with legalese or technical details. I'll make it as simple as I can, but there will be something which is a little technical. For information of those who are wanting to know more, there's outside here at the table, we have kept my books there. There's a QR code there. You can also pay in cash, whatever it is. You can pick up a book. I'll autograph them at the end of my session here. So I'm not trying to sell the books, but I would like to know that that is something in the book which will help you. How would it help you? I'll make a simple point. You all give data to various people. You go to hospitals, you give data. Go to airlines, they give data. You go to banks, you give data to take a fixed deposit. You go to anywhere, government, they can give you data. All the data goes into some system, the company system, or the utility system, organization system, it goes into that. What happens to your data once it goes into that box, whatever it is? Is it safe? Is your data personal? Yes, it is. If it's personal, are you able to live? If you put the if supposing you have the data and it is not protected, what do you do about it? As you saw in the video now, this data which has been put in different hospital, 1K, morbidities, pharma company, and meeting in MNC for managers, all these, and even a building contractor, all these are put together, the entire profile of the gentleman is coming. So he's very unhappy. That's what will happen to many of us. Many of us suffer, as you read in the newspapers, some scams going on, fraudsters acting on these players all over the world. How will you protect yourself? In the book, I have given do's and don'ts for individuals, do's and don'ts for companies, do's and don'ts for printers, processors, internet users, and so on. Have a look at it. It will be of help to you if you want to purchase a book. That's only just outside this, but let me also add this. The book has got about 32 cartoons and a poem on privacy right, and also apocryphal conversation, which I showed you here, something more in that, and what the eminent judges of the Supreme Court have said on privacy right and data protection. It's also there in the book. So all this is available in that book. So you can kindly think it over. If you would like to purchase it, please, when you go out, you can kindly do it. Now I'll go to the presentation right away. Next one. I plucked the fruit from Puttaswamy case judgment. The Puttaswamy case is 1,400 pages long. Believe me, the Supreme Court judgment on Puttaswamy's case on privacy right, Aadhaar and other things is 1,400 pages long. In fact, if you look at it, it's full of research data, very good, very well written, excellently drafted, and you can write perhaps 5 PhD theses on that judgment. It's so good it is. I went into that, I plucked the fruits, and I authored the book here. Next. Then the privacy right, I said, what are its features? And first started with privacy, then I go to data protection. These are all taken from, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, from the Supreme Court's judgment where they have analyzed each one of them into 30, 40 pages. Privacy is a natural right. Now, like a fundamental, like a freedom of speech, freedom of religion, kinds of things, there is also a fundamental right for privacy. Please remember this. When you go into any activity of sale, purchase, anything of the kind, remember privacy is a fundamental right. If anybody transgresses the private right and harms you, you've got a right to protest. I'll tell you how you can protest. The sanctity of privacy rests on dignity. Why is it so? All of us have some ego, some dignity, self-respect. So dignity is very important for the sanctity of privacy right. Third is intrinsic to freedom and liberty, which of course is obvious. In privacy, I said there's a positive and negative content. I'll address it straight away. Informational privacy and privacy right needs just fair reasonable. Also okay. Next. Now, I put privacy right in 3 silos. What does it mean by 3 silos? There are people who hold the opinion that privacy right is a thing which you can, it's not good at all. It infringes your personal freedom. Don't have it. Privacy right is very bad. So the one extreme. The other extreme, privacy right is very good. Use it. So I took 3 silos. One, privacy right is good. Second, other end, privacy right is bad, ugly. Middle, privacy right has an overreach possibility. That is, it is good, but there are some people who tweak it, overreach it, and create harm to all of you. So there are 3 things: bad, good, bad, and ugly. Good is good, ugly is very bad. In the middle is where is overreach. I put them in 3 silos here: vulnerable and ugly features. The next one. The first is good, trust. Here I am making it this way. The literate citizens generally they value privacy right. We are all literate, well educated, so you value privacy right. But the benefits the welfare schemes state, like they are illiterate generally, they know that there is some welfare measure coming to them, perhaps a subsidy on cylinder, free ration, it could be free ride on the buses, whatever. Benevolent further identification. So they know this privacy right, even though they are not aware of what it is, they are welcome the privacy, even if you take data from them, they are willing to give data to you. So welfare schemes they target certain sections like poor, marginalized and impecunious, where data is get. These people will give data as you wish, no problem. So it is having a good feature in terms of the fact that whatever welfare measures are done are targeted to needy people, people who deserve it. Next. The second is the data with the help of AI has the potential for, you can manage affairs of the government, which you can see in newspapers. You can improve in police administration, including traffic, etc. And this is very important here, justifiable surveillance. That is, if there are people who are criminals, dacoits, robbers, rapists, whatever it is, you have a surveillance, it is justified to use this privacy right you can break to have justifiable surveillance. Third, the education can be quality-wise upscale and it can go to betterment. Third, last if you give them inputs that disrupts hunger, soil management and other things, you can manage with the help of privacy. That is, even though privacy rate is to some extent diluted, you give the data, it is going to help them. This is good point and thrust too. Next. Last one and third, I'm still with the good one. Improvement in democratic administration, all of you understand this. Protecting sovereignty integrity of the country. Where sovereignty integrity of the country is concerned, for defense, etc., if some privacy right gets extinguished, let it get extinguished. It is important for the country's sovereignty and integrity. So these are three good things, three slides in favor of privacy. There is the middle one. Here, there could be abuse or misuse of data. I mentioned to data comes to you in different forms, various places. Somebody can abuse and misuse. The perpetrators are generally private players. Please remember, some of the big tech companies are misusing and abusing data. Perpetrators, last one, state. Even the government has surveillance over you. If it has surveillance, it can draw your profile. Who are you? Dr. Chakravarthy, he is giving a lecture today at Manthan, they know all that. That surveillance kind of thing happens. So when there is overreach by the state itself, it has got harmful effects on citizens. So we'll go to the next one. The misuse of private players. What happens? Cornucopia of data, plenty of data, it leads to the data is coming in big forms, like in organization medical sciences, 200,000 patients' data are available. They stole it, right? And then they made it into subproducts of that data. Small thing, data on diabetes patients, data on leprosy patients, kinds of things. So subproducts are made. The segregation takes place with that data. Subproducts are commercial monitored. Then what they do is they monetize that. All right, I got some data on diabetes patients, etc. So they monetize it and then make money out of it. Then they are targeted towards specific groups and customers. Now, I given Uber cab. Now I'll give you an example where as a private player can do it. You don't have a vehicle. You want to go to the airport, right? You phone up Uber, the Uber comes there. Now, if you are a regular traveler, in Uber you may do it, say, 10 times in a year, let us say. Each time you go there, your thing is all targeted as Mr. So-and-so has used Uber 6 times. Where do you go? You go to different places, maybe different cities and all that. More than all that, one small point, ladies and gentlemen, supposing you are wedded to a faith, religion, you may go to a temple en route and stop for a minute. You may go to a mosque and stop for a minute, or you can go to church and stop for a minute. Doesn't matter. These are all noted. The Uber drivers note these things, and they put it in the system. Once they know, oh, you are of this faith, then they start using the data because you are having that faith. When the elections come, well, you are of so-and-so faith, we would like to make these elections in favor of them. All these things, you travel in an Uber car, you are ultimately a victim of that information. That's what I call Uber car. There are so many other things, but I don't want to give you. You can see the case of the 18 case studies I made in the book. You can go through them, including electoral bonds case and cash. You can go have a look at it. I don't want to spend my time on it. Third, this is the last one. No, sorry, the last one in the overreach. Here, state includes instrumentalities. For instance, state doesn't mean only government. Government company, government corporation, even a registered government body. All these are instrumentalities. Even they also misuse the data. Misuse of state occurs if its intent is not ethical or if it crosses the Lakshman Rekha of legitimate and proper administration. If they don't observe their own restraint and they cross the Lakshman Rekha, cross ethics, then you have a misuse. This can be harmful to citizens and violative moral standards. So electoral bonds case, they said there is privacy for the person who donates, right? The person who receives, again, confidential is privacy. What did this court say? Court did not shut down the electoral bonds on these cases. The voter that you are, when you go to the booth and vote, and if you don't know who has given the money, to whom, to which party, you are not fully informed when you go and vote. That is where the Supreme Court said the individual voter has an obligation to know who is there, and there the privacy right will not go beyond a point. That's where they struck it down. So electoral bonds case is a very important case where overreach with state, and there's electoral bonds originally meant for something else, but actually what happens is some people gave some money. Ultimately it is known to the party which receives the money. So they have a quid pro quo. They will give something in return which you won't even know why it's happened, how it's happened. So that kind of misuse is what in electoral bonds case was there, but ultimately the court struck it down. Next. Erosion is the last, the ugly part of it. Big tech firms, for sake of not being hauled up for defamation, I said not all but some. They follow privacy and data protection policies which cause anti-competition outcomes in the market. They also limit innovation, technical development. What happens is, they also, these are all things that happen in Google Play Store or can say Microsoft. You give a lot of data. All the data is with them. Now, they make into a condition that some of the things are put on their, say, you go for knowing something new, their search engine, you go and press a button, you get the search engine things. There on the right side, you will see Google or Monopoly, their advertisements. So you're all inveigled into looking at that, and once you get into that, you are prohibited from going to any other platform. That is where anti-competition arises. That is where the invasion of the right arises. That is, you can go to Google and then sign up some things. You can't go to any other platform. You have to only be there and see all the advertisements. So they get the advantage of looking at advertisements and getting things through. That is another thing which is happening. Now, these are okay. Now, what India has done. We have passed, as you saw in the video, Parliament, this act has been passed. Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Remember this. It applies only digital, not handwritten information. Right. Personal, anything of your personal age, your married status, your occupation, your salary, whatever, all this personal data, that is given protection by this act. But it has not yet been enforced. The video also said it. That gentleman said, it's not enforced, you can't sue me for data breach. That's what he said. So this act which is coming to being, but it's going to be enforced very shortly. They are wanting to get the rules prepared. They have drafted it. They have put the rules in public domain. If all of you want to go to the site and see, rules are there. You can make your comments to the government if you want. Till 18th. 18th February is the last day. They will receive the objections or suggestions only up to 18th. Then afterwards, they will finalize the rules, they will come into force. In the Act itself, only digital personal is protected. Data principle is, it's called data subject by some people in some context. But in India, they call the Mr. Krishna, judge who wrote the report, not this report on protection. He said data principle will be the nomenclature. That you and I are data principles. We are not data subject, but we are called data principles. And data fiduciary processor, next, that is, once you give the data, there is a person called data fiduciary. He takes the data. Then he processes the data processor. All this is within the company or wherever it is. Now, these people are also important functionaries who are liable for any data breach. Remember this, data breach means you are also victimized, so you have got a right to protest. Data fiduciaries will be hauled up, data processors also will be hauled up, and then they can be punished. I'll show you how. The second part of it is, when you give data, in fact this suggestion was given by me to the Government of India before the act was made. I said, if a person is going to give data, first go to him or her and ask for that person's consent. He should give it in writing. I, so-and-so, Dr. Chakravarthy, I am prepared to give you the data. Then you must say, what is the purpose for which you are collecting it? That was signed there. And third, most important, ladies and gentlemen, is I have the right to withdraw my consent once the purpose is achieved. Once you go to a bank and ask for FD, fixed deposit, you get the fixed deposit purpose. Once the FD is received by you, then you can withdraw your consent. After the withdrawal of consent, if that data of yours is misused or used for any other purpose, there is a data breach that is punishable in that act. So the thing is that you are being protected to some extent. But one question I ask, there's millions in the country, so many transactions take place. How are you going to give consent for everybody? The point is we have to start somewhere. All right. First, initially there will be a problem. Even in EU, European Union, they had a consent in their act. But what happened was they were not happy at the outcome. Because many people are able to go outside that and do things. Something is happening. So the point is how do you implement it is important. In India it is always said, India is very good in enacting laws, but we are very poor in implementation. That's a fact. We don't implement properly. So that's one thing which is very important. Secondly, I mentioned to consent and withdraw. Then, personal data of children is given very big importance in the Act. That is, for children, you go and get data, they can be taken for a ride. They are very young, they don't know. Until they are mature at the age of 18, they are young. There is a data protection board which is going to examine your complaints on data breach, and that will come a little later in the Act, but I don't want to go into the details. But there is a kind of a body, regulator, who will take care of your interest. Once you have a data breach and make a complaint, Data Protection Board will give its finding and punish those people who have caused the breach. The serious offense, remember, data breach, it is not the data that is exploited, you are being exploited. Remember that. That is a major difference. Exploiting data, anybody can misuse data. Ultimately, you are the victims. Data breach is a reason for your being a victim on this. Do's and don'ts. I mentioned to you, this is what happened in my book. For companies and firms, if you are a company, you collect a lot of data, you please have a proper framework for collecting, creating the data itself. There is a data cell, or you call it a data framework. Then you take consent of data principles. Don't take data without that. Exercise control over your employees. Your privacy policy is there. All your employees should know what is it involved, what is that right. Protect sensitive data through security policies. That is, we have got some sensitive data. Like for instance, your technology is very important. You have got a patent, for instance. So you can protect that through security policies in your own framework. Some extra precautions, extra OTP kind of a thing. Then always comply with the Act rules and regulations. Avoid policies, companies I'm talking about, avoid policies which create entry barriers, unfair conditions, unreasonable high fees. For instance, Google Play Store had a very high fee. People questioned it in the courts. Why is it so high? But they said, you can't go to any other platform. Then you are forced to pay that amount. So unreasonable, usurious things can take place. Avoid policies for innovation being impeded, etc. Those are individuals, you and I. Your consent is imperative. Insist on purpose. Remember that your data can be used in interest of sovereignty, integrity, and security, which I mentioned to you. When data breach occurs, take action under the Act. You can make a complaint to the Data Protection Board straight away, same day. For cybersecurity, take action as listed in the book. Password, ignoring prompts, etc. All that you can take care of so that you will not be taken for a ride. So cybersecurity is important. When data breach occurs, take action under that, make a complaint. For individuals, avoid sharing. This is one thing which is always in the WhatsApp group. You can go to the right hand corner, there are 3 dots, press it, share, it will come. You share with somebody else. How do you know it's correct information, fake information, deep fake? What do you know? You pass it on to somebody. And once you pass it on, you are also liable. Please remember that. So that's the way you always be very, very sure. Avoid sharing. Share data with trusted brands and platforms. You must be very sure of that. Anything posted online stays there forever. You put it online. Sometimes you are very liberal. Put it online, whatever you want to say. It's online, everyone is available to everybody, accessible to everybody. That's not good for you. Beware of banking and financial fraud. Okay, that's right. This, again for individuals. This is a thing which I thought Mr. Vikram, who is practically Manthan leader, is a very erudite person with a tremendous amount of, shall I say, knowledge of books, knowledge of policies, knowledge of analysis, etc. He raised some point with me at one point of time. Here asked me, who owns the data? Right, you are given a data. Who owns it? I made three steps there. Data stored in your personal device, like your mobile, or your telephone, or your computer, you own. Remember, you own the data. You are given the data, you own it. Don't forget it. Data shared with hardware software, the provider owns it. Once you put it share and three dots say to share it to somebody, then provider owns it, you are not owning it afterwards. Data uploaded to the internet is public, accessible to everyone. So who owns the data? Either you or the provider or the public at large. For employees of the company, educate yourself on the various provisions of the Act. Take action for cybersecurity as suggested in the book in chapter 2. I've given you what you can do in the company. I am also suggesting audit a privacy policy. So privacy policy, you can see, whenever you go there, there's a small icon. I agree. You press it. You have no time to read through. You have no time to analyze it. Everything is said there in small print. Some of them may be against your interest. But you press I agree because you want to go to your destination. So you do it knowingly, intentionally, but you don't know the consequences. So remember that for audit, I said any privacy policy which you have in the company, if there's a disclaimer and all that, please go through it carefully, make an audit of it, not once in a month, once in 2 months, audit and say where I have to change so that you are not taken for a ride. And the other point which he made is you can also avoid data bias and you can comply with the act and quote as I say goodbye. I wanted to quote, this is a quote from somebody, I'll just simply read it out for you. Life can only be understood backwards. That is, you know what's happened in the past backwards. But it is lived forwards. We need to move forward and live forward, not all the time look backwards. So this is very important, particularly in data protection and privacy right. Privacy right and data protection are indispensable guardians of citizens' freedom. Now, before I close down and leave it open for the conversation to start, one point I would like to highlight for you. Many people think that the punishment given is for big companies because they are big. Please kindly understand this. There is nothing in law which says big companies should be punished because they are big. Why? There's a reason for it. Prior to 1991, there was one paradigm, LPG, licensing, planning, government control. That is the paradigm. After 1991 reforms of Manthan and P.V. Narasimha Rao, another LPG has come. Liberalization, privatization and globalization. One LPG has given to another LPG. What does it imply? I will tell you in the context of big companies. Olden days, big was bad. But in the new law, big is fine, but abuse of bigness is bad. Similarly, monopoly was bad in those days. Now, monopoly is fine, but abuse of monopoly is bad. Similarly, dominance in those days was bad. Now, dominance is fine, abuse of dominance is bad. So, the paradigm shift is where is the abuse of a particular factor in you, that is what causes problems for everybody, you and I. So, let me finish with this and thank you very much.
Now, the first thing I would like to ask you is an interesting word which you mentioned in your book, data police, as against monopoly. I find it very interesting, and in fact, in the document which I wrote these questions, I even titled it Data Police. Now, I'm not worried about dominance. I'll repeat a line which you wrote. Data police, it is almost impossible to reduce the hold of Google, Amazon, Apple and Facebook in the world of data. So my question to you is, if the dominance is complete, how do you see their future in the next 30, 40 years? And in that world of dominance, does India figure at all?
Thank you. The basic point is data police is an expression which I will not say I coined it. Actually, I read one piece of an article where those people who are essentially collecting data, apart from manufacturing, service or all that, they are data police. That is, they are all like monopolies, they are all data police. That's what I suggested that. But the basic point here is, what he has asked as a question where is a world of dominance. Now, I mentioned it just now, dominance today is on, but abuse of dominance is bad. So here, who are those people who are likely to be punished? Only those who abuse their dominance, not who are dominant. Merely because they're dominant doesn't make anything at all. But if you abuse the dominance, yes, you'll be punished. Here, dominance is described, I'm sorry to get into small legalists here, there is a section 4 of the Competition Act, not Companies Act, Competition Act, which says dominance is where a company is able to function and act irrespective of the competitive forces in the market. There are 5 competitors. He is, let us say, a dominant player. He can act no matter what other 4 do. He has got the complete dominance is not determined on the basis of market share. No, there's only one factor. No, so many other factors are there. But if that company is able to act irrespective of the competitive forces, then he is a dominant person. If that dominance abuses, he is punishable, is what the Act says. Now, the tribunals in India, like the Competition Commission of India, earlier MRTP Commission, I was a member thereof, and courts, high courts and supreme courts, they have all given interpretation of what is abuse of dominance and how they should be taken to task. So here, if you mention Google, Amazon, Apple, etc., and Facebook and so on, some of them are dominant, but per se they are not acting against law. But when they start abusing the dominance, I give you an example where Google completely forbids you from going to any other platform, then it is anti-competition, where you can take action under the Competition Act. That's how I would say. India, he has said, with India figures in this. India figures in the sense, if Google, in the United States, has presence in India and their units here functioning, then they are also a part of the Indian law. That is, they are susceptible to Indian law. In Indian law, in Competition Act, dominance, abuse dominance is punishable. So if this Google has done somewhere there, and its effect is on us, the effects doctrine, if it is there, then they can be punished in India under the Indian law. So India does not figure, it does figure, but in indirect way, but effectively.
Sir, on another thought you argue in this book that during the implementation of the welfare measures for certain sections of society, imposition of limitations of privacy rights may satisfy the test of justification, but the right itself cannot be distinguished or compromised. My question is, if as you argue in the presentation, that privacy right is a fundamental right, then can we say that the test of proportionality should not be applied? I assume that fundamental rights are absolute rights, so they cannot be a relative crime. How valid is my argument?
Fundamental right, privacy right is a fundamental right, is what the Supreme Court has ordained. It's an obiter dictum. Privacy right, as I mentioned to you, stressed emphatically, it is a fundamental right for all of you. But the court has also added, the right is not absolute. Even fundamental rights are not absolute, because where there is a need for public interest to dilute the fundamental right, they can do it. For instance, the road, you can't say going on the left is an order, because I want to go on the right, you can't say it. So in the interest of public interest, they always make a condition or a qualification. So fundamentally it's not absolute, it's only in terms of right which you possess. But where public interest is involved, sometimes it can be done away with. Here, I would like to mention about the three-test syndrome. That is, any right, whether it is absolute or not, whether it is on or not, have to be tested on 3 parameters. 1, legality. It should be absolutely legal, lawful, number 1. 2, it should meet the needs of the people. You want to say, go only on the left, it's the needs of the people. So need is third. Third is what Mr. Vikram said, proportionality. That is, you should not impose a condition on the right which is excessive. For instance, if you have to have only a certain limit of that right, keep to the limit. Don't go beyond. If you go beyond that limit, then you are overreaching the right. So the limits can be fixed by public interest in terms of what the society wants.
I would like to argue this a little more, but later. On the issue of citizens' right in surveillance, you argue that it is a cause of worry for citizens as to whether certain vital data relating to personal information would be disclosed to outsiders or interested parties. How reasonable are the punishments, and I think they are very meager in proportion to the consequences of the crime, especially in the case of surveillance, and also the complex judicial process makes it worse. I'm saying it in the context of what happened in Pegasus software. In the Pegasus software, it's a software sold by the Israeli company, and it was supposed to be sold only to government-sponsored agencies. Pegasus was installed in India with targeted individuals, and there's obviously abuse by the state. Considerable damage has been done by the state to the privacy of the individuals. And the reaction of the state, frankly, to the Supreme Court was in sealed covers. How can we punish the state for doing this?
He has caught me on the wrong foot here, but anyway, I'll give an answer to this. There is a provision in the Digital Protection Act, it's 33(1) or something. It has got a schedule of what punishments are inflictable on persons who cause data breach. Now, data fiduciaries, data processors, even a state can breach data. That is, data can be misused or abused. The Act says any person, I'll tell you what a person is, any person who causes data breach can be punished. That's there in the Act itself. When I say person, what is person? Person is defined in the Act. It's got a long list. Includes the state. State is also a person. So if the state breaches data, it is punishable under the Act. Now, whether what Vikram asked is whether courts can pass an order punishing the state. How do you punish the state? I suppose if there is a violation of a law by the state in any other matter, not only data protection, these courts intervene. They say you should not act like this. If you have done something wrong to somebody, compensate him. All that happens. So here, the punishment of the state can be in terms of these things. It may not go to the extent of, this government will remove. It won't be say that. But in relation to what the breach content is, they can punish the state by saying you compensate the damages which is inflicted on the victim, or you can say this particular thing has caused a widespread problem somewhere, resettle them, rehabilitate them. All that is possible under the Act. So it is not that it is the punishment itself ranges between 50 crores and 250 crores for 6-7 items. So it's not a small amount. So I think Vikram made a point that it could be a small amount. 50 crores could be a big amount for many people. Okay, if these days the crores mean not much these days, but still, it can go up to 250 crores. But there's one silver lining in this. What Vikram asked was very good. There's one silver lining in this. The Act says that this schedule can be revised, revisited, and enhanced in case of just a need for it. That is, in case, as he says, it is not adequate as a deterrence, the government can step in and change the schedule itself. So that can be done. Pegasus is a case where I am unable to comment right away because it is still in the investigation stage where the court has not given it. It's still pending somewhere or some different fora. The only point here is it's a very serious thing, Pegasus. It is an Israel-based thing where it is given to only government-sponsored organizations. So that means if you buy Pegasus, the state, let us say, then the state owns it and it can do a lot of mischief. If it ultimately results in a data breach or anything of breach of data protection law, they can be punished as a state, they will be punished. Yes, yes. See, you are right. 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 You are right. This is the first time, this is the first step India is taking towards its data protection. It is not, nobody has data protection in this country so far. First step. So they are very cautious in doing all these things. And if suppose you start with the arrest and all that, everything becomes like your various things. You see people get arrested quickly. So all that may come later. But we are going to start, even the act has not been enforced yet. Even that has not taken place.
There is the basic test of proportionality and trust by given a constitutional law. I don't have any other choice but the other.
No, Sanjay, it's a complex problem. You and I cannot solve it. But I would like to say that limited to Pegasus, the information which the government possessed, assuming it possessed it, by breach, and the government takes advantage of that information. My private conversation with you is in possession of the government, and the damage it can do to our plans is irreversible. So, I mean, so we have to think of a more complicated punishment thing, and someone in that line of command must be held responsible for it. Because when we say state, does it mean does it mean the secretary? Does it mean the home minister? Who is the state? That will come. Anyway, that's awesome. I have one more question. I must recommend that there is one very good chapter here on the intersection of privacy right and competition law. Frankly, I never saw it in that light, and I must thank him for that. You have rightly pointed out that till recently, antitrust laws and privacy were independent concepts, and their intersection was rare in litigation. You also say that the privacy right has been anesthetized by the policies of big firms. What do you mean by, on the context of the intersection of pro-privacy parties and its influence on competition of privacy?
Actually, this is a discussion which I made in the book itself. What is the law that you can apply where a pro-privacy policy, practice of a company takes place and it results in some kind of harm to the individual? Now, competition law has its own way of description, interpretation. It's gone over a number of years now. The Competition Act is 2002 origin, now 20 years, now 24 years. But earlier there was MRTP Act. That's slightly different, but both are competition laws. But there has been a lot of case laws in this where courts have given decision as to what should be done. Now I examine one aspect here. Can competition law be adequate to deal with such pro-privacy policy resulting in harm to people? I found that it can be done in terms of section 3, 4 and 6, so 3, 4 and 5. We can take action, but the question is, if it goes to court and they examine it, they may give a different interpretation. We don't know what they will do. But on the intersection, I will only make one point here. Big tech companies may I gave an example like this. A big tech company may ostensibly offer better privacy for consumers. They say, I will give you complete protection, encryption, all that end-to-end encryption will give you, they will say. But during the privacy policy, they also, as I mentioned to you during my presentation, there is something where they limit you from going to other platforms. They limit you from going to other sources where you can play with your cards. If they do it, it's anti-competition. So it can be covered by competition law. But the privacy which they promise, they may not give ultimately. What they say, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, ultimately they may not even honor the word. So all these things can be anti-competition. So this is the matter in which ultimately the laws to come into force, Only after it is implemented in practice we can say with authority what can be done. But government is contemplating a digital competition law. This that it will be a add-on to competition law itself. They are working on the drafting. Once that comes, perhaps the questions which Vikram asked could be answered in this case.
I'll revisit another question which you made in the presentation, but I want to complicate the matter. The question I had written there is who is the owner of my data? But I have a more complicated question. Does the state own me at all? Because I receive subsidized electricity, I received power, subsidized gas, I received many welfare schemes. So in one way, government is buying me at some level. So I think in that sense, the state owns me. So when the state owns me, I should not complain that my data is being owned by the state. And just by giving consent, suppose I consent to the state saying that you can use my data, does it cure the problem of ownership of data is one. But fundamentally, sir, I want to ask you a question. Are we the Chinese model where the state owns the citizen?
First of all, there is one important factor here. The citizen is not owned by the state in that form. In fact, the citizens are the rulers actually. So I put it the contrary thing, but not, anyway, that's not the important point here. I mentioned in my presentation, once the data is yours, it's in your device, you own the data, no matter what anybody says. You own the data. Secondly, when you share it with somebody, the provider of that device, he owns the data or she owns the data. Third is, once you go into public domain, all of you own the data collectively. So data is owned in three different parties in three different scenarios. But nothing is can be said about once the data is given to you, where you are given the ownership. No, you still own the data, no matter what anybody says. You own the data. You can go on breach of data only on that ground, that you own the data, there's a breach, I am harmed. That's how I will look at it. From the present situation, there's a reading of the law. But let us see how it shapes. The laws roll down, then only we can say various nuances. At this point of time, I can say data is yours, you own it.
I think as citizens in the next 30, 40 years, we will cease to be persons, we'll become data points. And once you become data points, transferring data without my consent is like selling my soul.
Yeah.
I'm trying to complicate matters.
Right.
Well, the other issue I have is that there's a lovely chapter here which examines acts at the end of the journey, but I will limit myself to the dilution of the aspect of transparency. There's an amendment to the section 8(1)(j) which makes a huge concession by exempting all personal information from disclosure under the RTI Act. The RTI Act is something where data can be shared, and then it makes a concession saying that personal information are prevented from disclosure. Don't you think this is a backward step in building democracy? And the purpose of RTI is defeated.
Straight away, let me say, I agree with you 100%. It is a case of regression of democracy. It is not progression, it is a regression of democracy, no doubt about it. Why? Section 8(1)(j) of the RTI, the Right to Information Act, says that any data can be denied if it has got a part of public policy or it harms you personally if it is disclosed, then you can decline to give the data. All other data can be given. But after amendment, that all is gone. You can declare any data that comes before you. That is the way it's called regression. Earlier, only one portion where it is personally problematic for you or it's a public policy factor, then only you can deny. But now, everything can be denied. Anything, for instance, supposing you want to know what are the judges' assets at a particular time, what is the value of their bank account and all that. I won't give you because amendment act taken. Earlier, you could have had it. You are right. I agree with you. It's a regression democracy. That particular thing, which is not at all well conceived, I agree with you.
When someone agrees with me, I feel I'm wrong. In another place you say that as the digital markets are dynamic in nature, timely intervention is necessary to prevent anti-competitive conduct. Now we are in the world of AI and we are in the world of high-speed computing, quantum computing on a regular basis, in my opinion, is only 20 years away. It is impossible for regulation to catch up with abuse. The abuse happens and in an instant the effects are felt. And how do you prevent anti-competitive conduct in that speed? And looks like this is going to be extensively worked with big companies. A digital competition law, as you may say, to enable a regulation of large digital companies will also punish them for being big.
I mentioned to you in my earlier presentation, big by itself is not an offense, so nobody will be punished because you are big. Only when you abuse your size, abuse your bigness, then only it becomes punishable. But the basic point you raise is important. The question is, when competition law is not adequate, then they won't have another law if it's possible to do it. But here, the question will be, when a company acts and makes a policy, that is taken to the courts. Even EU, even India, US, they have all taken Google, Amazon, Microsoft to the courts. Some of the courts have given an opinion that what you have done is anti-competition, even though you are big. They have said it. And some of them are still lying in the appellate courts and so on and so forth. The final word has not been said, but most of the tribunals say that, yes, it is anti-competition, it is punishable. There's no question of being big, they will be let off. No. That doesn't arise at all. If you are big, you abuse your bigness and you will be punishable. That is my straight answer to your question.
So the last one I would say is this. There's a chapter here on the analysis of various case laws on the issues of data and privacy, and it makes a lot very interesting reading. Actually, I've read 3 or 4 cases which is there in the book, and there are happy contradictions in those cases. And it makes fun reading it, but it's very complex. But for this conversation, I'll refer only to one case. The dominance of Google and its unfair conditions on the people who publish news. The news publishers in the case referred seem to be having no choice but to accept the terms and conditions of Google. We are not talking about Google and the news publishers. But in this fight, it seems to me that the privacy right of the viewer, it has been ignored. And if there is no competition to Google, I think the competition commission itself is fighting a losing battle.
Well, the more important case would be the New York case where the publisher has actually gone to the court saying that they have copyrighted my thing, they abused the copyright condition and they should punish. But the court said, no, it is not directly punishable because they have not done anything to mold the content or tweak the content and publish it. It's only the same substantive thing is there, so it is not punishable, said one of the US courts. But the Indian courts still have not given decision on this, it's still pending. So I'm not able to give a view as to what the courts will say. But one thing I can say, that in case the copyright is violated and they have created the entry to, barrier to entry for others or platform, yes, it is punishable according to what I understand of the new law. But it has to be seen how it's going to work because no case law is there today as of now, as far as India is concerned.
Friends, I think this can go on. As you can see, this is an important primer on this law, and I managed to ask you a few questions. But I think that the time has come when we have to decide for ourselves what we are likely to be in the next 20 years. And I repeat what I said. I think the way we are being dealt with, it will be inhuman or subhuman to be more accurate. and we will become data points. And that is my worry. Thank you.
The laws will get enacted, let's say, in the next 3-6 months time frame. But what happens to all the data that we already signed up for the last 20 years? Is this going to be applicable retrospectively, or is this going to be, prospectively only applicable? Because, so the laws will be enacted in the next 3-6 months or whatever, right? So, but what happens the last 20 years? We've signed up with banks, Amazon, Google, all social media websites, financial institutions where we've taken loans, we've bought cars, vehicles, homes. The data, so much data is there. So the right to withdraw consent, which you mentioned, is that applicable retrospectively? So whatever we've signed up for the last 20 years, ever since the advent of internet, we can go and unsign them. Or is it only applicable prospectively that from today, whatever data that you sign up for, only for that you can have the right to withdraw consent?
In fact, the Minister himself had clarified in one of his press conferences, prospective in application, not retrospective. That's what he said. But then one thing which you could also notice that the law itself, it says, one second, one small sentence is there. These rules, called the Digital Personal Protection Rules, which will be effective from a later date, except rules 3 to 15. And the 3 to 15, 22 are immediately applicable. There is nothing called retrospective effect. Some of them may come later, but some of them are going to be immediate as soon as this goes into a notification. It's applicable from that date. What happened 20 years back, as Sri Sampath was saying, will not be covered by these things. What is done is done. Now anything in future only you can protect. But the data which I had given earlier was without consent. So it's all voluntarily given at that time. You can't punish them on that basis. There is no question of withdrawal of consent because no consent is taken here. So that all that will be only retrospectively, so nothing will apply.
I must bring to your attention one case of a very large stockbroking firm. They took the informed consent of its various shareholders, saying that the firm can, without, the shareholder consents hereby that their demat accounts can be pledged to a third party and for the firm to take loans. And one stockbroker whose name starts with K, ends with Y. I have not told you that. Okay, so now I am saying it in the context of law. Government of India said that though the consent has been obtained from the shareholder, actually these shares should be restored to the original shareholder. Banks have lent based on the consent. So the banks are saying, we believe that consent and we have lent money. So this is now the complication in that case. Government of India says shares should be restored to the shareholder. Banks are saying we believe the consent. Government of India is saying we refuse, we do not reject, we reject the consent given by the shareholder. But the consent has been given. So all I am saying is that this giving consent is a very, very complicated subject, and next time you sign for various forms, when you apply for a loan, those 30 papers which you sign and which you sign at super speed, especially they're all blank. Remember, some of those forms say that they can enter your house to take your property.
You have a course in data science, data mining, science management, everything, data management. As you mentioned about EU, I see a lot of people from India, especially Indians and a lot of youngsters, Asians, who are working in EU. They handle huge amounts of data. And then they call themselves as expert in data science, data management, data mining, with very little knowledge. Since we had a very good talk and good exchange of views, can any of your words and your book points, can they be introduced in these courses at school level and college levels, degree levels? Because also there is a course on BTech in data science, data management. So I feel many of your points can be students in that level, school or college level. Yeah. But there are a lot of people working on this field without knowing what they are doing exactly. And I'm afraid soon, Dr. Karthik will be known by my 8547 number. Or maybe Mr. Vikram will be known by 658 number. Or you, the Dr. Chakravarthy, will be known by a number. It's definitely going to happen in the next few years.
Well,
please take care of that.
In a manner of speaking, say the country, what happens to data, where is it stored? There is one particular provision in the Act, if I am not mistaken, it is section 16, which says originally it is different, but they amended it when before finalizing draft, they amended that section. You can transfer data to every country except those who they blacklist. Government of India blacklist. Suppose the Government of India blacklist country XYZ. You can't transfer data to that country. All other countries, if they are not notified, you can transfer data without any difficulty. So it's a question of what is going to be blacklisted. That again depend upon the topography, the relationship, the way in which the past behavior has been, hostile to us, friendly to us, all that will come into picture. But once the government notifies, don't go to that country, you can't transfer data there. But every other country, you can transfer. That is a simple answer which I can give you. There's no other way of looking at this point of time. There's no notification, even the act has not come into force.
Sir, regarding the owning of the data, you mentioned device, hardware, software and internet classification. So, and digital data, right? So device, which device is not connected to hardware or software? And which hardware and software is not connected to internet in this age? So in effect, all your data is public, isn't it, sir?
No, I say with a particular provider of hardware, that fellow is the owner at that point. Not your device may be connected to some hardware, no doubt about that. But he is not providing you that in the particular case. It is there as part of the purchase itself. But the point here is, if you go to a provider to whom you share the data and he is going to use that, then he becomes the owner at that time.
Sir, I mean, we are being too naive, sir, on this thing. Why? Because, as I said, we have 30 pages of this document which is saying, I agree. Can you use any device without agreeing to the thing? Can you use any application, anything without using the right?
I am not buying this, I agree with you, I am not disagreeing with you. The point I made is, we sign the disclaimer notice or whatever it is, I agree. Without reading those things, that 30 pages, you say, fine, you sign the papers, correct. No doubt about that. But the point here is, they put in the fine print what is possible, what is not possible. If you have not read through and you simply signed it, it's your fault. But I will not fault you that way, because in order to get what you want in the particular institution, you sign and then be done with it. But in doing so, if there's a problem later, they'll show you the signature.
No, what I'm saying is, practically you cannot use any device without signing the things. That's what I'm trying to say.
But I'm actually using the expression very specifically like this. Where you share the data with a provider, then specifically in that case, the data is owned by the provider, not because you have a device. Yes, it is connected to some hardware, some software, I'm not questioning that. But where you share it with a particular provider, then that provider becomes a owner of the data. Anyway, that's the only which I can look at the act.
Sir, today's your information is information makes 11. Why not our today's audience make the information what we have given share to the others so that other citizens will also protect their rights and data. This is my question to you and to all the audience who have come to hear you.
Point here is, many people don't read the laws as a fact. What is gazetted, what is a notification, who gets all those papers? So you may not know it, but the legal maxim is that ignorance of law is no excuse. So every person has a responsibility, a specific thing to know about it, that one cannot live without it. You can't live with it.
It's related to the particularly kind of GST and income tax related, some kind of sensitive information. In the top level, I'm saying, if those things are misused and the information might be selling in a quid pro quo basis or whatever
Yes, in fact, if you are right, GST or income, yes, if the data is collected and there is a breach of the data, it is punishable. No, there's no doubt about it. So, supposing somebody had used GST and said, I reduce GST, you make money. That is assumed.
No. My question is not that. The entire information, the customer entire information, including the value, everything is up inside the thing. It will be transmitted to the opposite competitor. So if that one happens, maybe already happening, I don't know.
Right. Thanks for the clarification. I will tell you what it is. In the law itself, there is a provision which says that sensitive data or confidential data cannot be shared with somebody if your company doesn't want it. Supposing a company says, I will not share this data with anybody. You put a condition and that's your policy. It will be honored. It is honored in terms of the Act itself. The Act itself says it. You cannot force or compel a person to provide some information which is strictly confidential in your own interest. No doubt about that.
No, but I'll help you answer with my long experience in the income tax department. One thing which I respect the department for is the department's protection of informers. There is absolutely, I have not heard of a single case of department breaching the confidence it has between itself and the informer. There is not a single case, and we have to respect the department for that. So, to answer your question, the government has a system by which the information which it holds is privileged to itself and is not abused till date. Now, there is another aspect to it. This response is limited to not knowing about the informer. But if the government itself abuses that information, then I don't have to tell you what's happening in this country. That's all I can say.
See, the Data Protection Board is the regulator here. There is one section 28, subsection 8, which says the board, the Data Protection Board, and its officers shall not prevent access to any premises or take into custody any equipment or item that will adversely affect the day-to-day functioning of a person. Suppose the day-to-day functioning is going to affect you, even the board cannot get the information. It's prohibited specifically under section 28.8. So that answers the question which is specifically posed to me.
Let us assume that somebody writes an article or a poem and then he shares with somebody in the WhatsApp group. Then the information is stored in the WhatsApp database of the WhatsApp company. And suppose then he'll upload it in the internet, everybody can see it. Then who will be the owner of that? As per the Copyright Act, anybody who writes anything is the owner for the next 60 years, whether they register with the copyrights registrar of trademarks and copyrights or not.
Right.
At the same time, because it is in the internet, can that company, internet company, create a publication out of it and start selling it? Because it is now on the internet, the ownership, does it transfer to the internet company? This is the clarification.
Actually, I made this point, public domain, the public owns it. No question of individual owning it. It has gone through various stages, and with the internet coming in and it goes to public domain, the entire thing is accessible to anybody in the public. So you own it ultimately in the larger sense of the term. But it makes no sense for the individual who originally gave the data, because you went into WhatsApp group, allowed it to be shared with somebody, it went into the internet, all that is because you shared it. If you share it, then you are one of the persons who are responsible for ultimately the data getting into wrong hands. You can't do anything about it. Here, the question is one of circumspection. One has to be very careful. WhatsApp, all of you may be members of some group or the other. Whether public domain, the public owns it. No question of individual owning it. It has gone through various stages, and with the internet coming in and it goes to public domain, the entire thing is accessible to anybody in the public. So you own it ultimately in the larger sense of the term. But it makes no sense for the individual who originally gave the data, because you went into WhatsApp group, allowed it to be shared with somebody, it went into the internet, all that is because you shared it. If you share it, then you are one of the persons who are responsible for ultimately the data getting into wrong hands. You can't do anything about it. Here, the question is one of circumspection. One has to be very careful. WhatsApp, all of you may be members of some group or the other. Whenever you get some information, when you share it with somebody else, be
right of monetization transfer.
See,
I think that has been prevented under the amendment to the Act. First.
Monetization is another aspect. If somebody wants to do some dirty tricks on that, yes,
proceed on
they will do it.
Yeah.
Some picture companies are doing it.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I first take the opportunity of complimenting you on a fantastically researched and deep work, I think, which must have at least taken a decade for you to compile with the new things that are happening.
Took me 2 years.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me surprise you. It didn't take a decade.
Because of data. No, but then the story, it's a start. It's a beginning of what is going to be an extremely complex and a complicated journey forward, as we all see it. And worrying about who owns the data and who will finally take credit for the data, I think we need to go back to our Vedas and say Nishkarma Karma, where whatever happens will happen and we have just no rights over the data the moment it has got created. It's back in the world. So to that extent, irrespective of whatever we say and whatever complicated rules that we can actually create, maybe I can suggest one small title for you, like how the Constitution got created by Dr. Ambedkar. I think maybe for data laws, you are the Ambedkar of the data law.
My name is Upendra. So what my question is that you have raised a word that data police. So it is the website which is used by England, Wales and Ireland. So to download the crime data. So from the village level, same like data police, we have the NCR in our India. So every year they release the crime in India data. So most of the cases in India, so like it will be registered based upon fake FIRs. So do we consider it as the authentic data, and what is your opinion on this?
Data police, POLIES, not POLICE, not data police, data policies. That's a difference there.
Yes.
But apart from that, the question, broader question is, anything that happens to your data, personal data, you should guard it very safely. Fight for it. Don't give data just like that to anybody. For instance, census took place recently. Nobody took anybody's consent. Who gave consent? Nobody. Then once you have done it like that, what can you do about it? But still the act is not on. Consent taking will come only when the law comes into force. Maybe next 1 or 2 months it will come. I don't know.
Thank you.